if we want a convention that's going to appeal to that broad base, we need to be including and involving them as much as possible. They are, God, this sounds exceptionally corny, but they are the future.
You've got a minute to show off your skills. Like, you can run up and down, you can juggle the ball or whatever, and the scout will give you a rating.
There is one iconic dilapidated warehouse that hosts conventions in the UK that needs to be considered, and that is wherever the hell the Willy Wonka experience was hosted.
Now we're talking. I mean, it gets a lot more expensive, but now we're talking.
As someone who's met Miles, I will say he's a very nice man. So
He's lovely.
He is.
But yeah, he might not want to do this. I'm just going to put it out there. I reckon we could get Colonel Samba. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the FM show. I'm your host Tony Jameson, joined as always by Maggio. Unfortunately, RDF Tactics isn't with us today, but instead we have ourselves a guest, a returning guest, a friend of the show, the wonderful MustermannFM. Jeff, how are you, my friend? Are you well?
Good evening, guys. Yeah, very good. How are yourselves?
Well, I'm going to answer for myself and Sai and say that we're both incredibly well. But whether or not Sai is then going to change that, I mean, he's a few beers in, so we'll see whether he's going for fantastic or a little bit sleepy.
yeah, it's definitely sleepy. It was well, the problem is, you know, I had a few beers and they make me sleepy, and then I went for a nap, and then I was like, I've got to get up to record, and I was like, it was only like a half-hour nap, you know, and the beers were a few hours ago, so I'm sort of in that lull at the minute. So, you know, I'm not drunk, but I'm just like, yeah.
It's that bit when you went, so the beers made me sleepy, so I had to sleep, and that's the giveaway right there, isn't it? That's the one. You know, I'm no detective, but I'm guessing that if you're a bit sleepy and you have a sleep, chances are you're a bit sleepy.
Yeah, and I think that gives away that I don't have kids as well, right? Because people with kids can't do that.
Yeah. We said before we hit record. We have had a great day with the kids today, so let's crack on. Not revisit any of that. Very much been a battle today. Not fun, but we are where we are. So Jeff, like I say, it's a pleasure getting you back in. Obviously, we've had you on the show before, and very much a friend of the show. So the reason that we've got you in is because. Some people may know that last week we did a live show, and you were there. You were there in Nottingham.
I was indeed. It was an amazing show. I really, really enjoyed it. Fantastic seeing you guys do your bit and then chatting with everyone afterwards. Amazing evening.
Oh, see, look at that. We've primed him well, haven't we, Si? We've just nudged him going, right, come on. Now you make sure you say this or you're not coming on the show again.
It was good. Yeah, I met Mustermann. My evening was made up, so it was good for me.
Yeah, I think what's been great is that you've gone from being sort of this sort of like this brand new sort of like name on the box Mustermann, like sort of going, oh, this guy's got some interesting new content going on. Then he's got this amazing skin, and then all of a sudden it's like, he's everywhere. Mustermann's coming. This is gonna be great. We're gonna hang out, and like we saw you at the World Cup, and then we saw you obviously in Nottingham, and yeah, I think for that it's been cool to sort of like have you become more of a part of that community space now, I think.
That's a relief to hear, because you'll also see me in the bushes outside your house every now and then as well. You know, this is the way that I integrate, you know. First he seems like he's just this weird, quirky guy, and then suddenly I'm a stalker. Deal with it.
There's a fine line, though, isn't there, really, between, to be honest, you know. But you know what? I think I'm going to speak on behalf of us and say that behaviour that you display is probably fine for us, okay? After that, let's leave it to other people to decide where it sits. We will say as well, so I'm going to address this, by the way, this for the YouTube viewers, you can see it. For the audio listeners, I can't even begin to describe what I'm wearing right now. So we gave away some prizes. We should say as well, by the way, if the live show happened, as I say, last week, it is available on Patreon, right? Because obviously there's only so many people can get to Nottingham on a Monday evening in November. So we figured, right, if you couldn't get there, we'll put it on Patreon. So patreon.com/the FM Show pod if you want to see the show in its entirety. And you will see Si gave out some presents. There was one for myself, there was one for Aaron, and then there was some gifts for the audience. Now, I'm wearing my gift, and audio listeners, let me try and explain this for you. It is, and Si, tell me if I'm close here, you know when you walk into football stadiums and there's people outside selling shirts that it looks like they've designed themselves, right? It's one of those, and it's Italian, and it's got Batistuta written on it, and there's an Argentinian Batistuta on the front, and some wonderful sashes of yellow that look like they've been spray painted on. And the design of the shirt is a shirt that I've never seen before, and I don't think has ever been seen anywhere. And I don't even know what club you'd even have this at. So if I stand up and show that, for the audio listeners, that is Batigol, a royal blue shirt with a white stripe through the middle, yellow spray paint all over it, a very, very nice collar. It's a thing of beauty size. Oh yeah, and of course it does have Batistuta on the back in white with a red outline, and on an Argentinian flag on the sleeves. So,
yeah, it's
and the famous Batigol logo.
Shirt, Tony.
Exactly. Yeah. From the Batigol League that everyone can participate in, which I believe is part of a local Sunday league.
It's I mean, the thing is, these are making a comeback. These little retro 90s bootleg shirts. They're not fakes because they're not trying to be the real shirt. They're like admiration shirts. And like they're definitely something you would find down the market. And there are some very popular ones. So the famous ones are like the Simpsons ones where they're wearing, which I think might have even been official. Some of them. But there's a lot of fake ones where, you know, the Simpsons wearing national teams as the national colours. But yeah, I thought, you know, you've got to get a Football Manager legend in Batistuta, in Batigol, on the shirt for Tony. And Aaron, of course, got his match-worn Dennis Bergkamp with Dennis Bergkamp's face on the front. Which Aaron actually thought was a genuine shirt, despite how ludicrous it looked. He was like, "Is this match-worn?" No, Aaron, it really isn't. He was pretty happy with that until he. Well, I think when he saw the back, he thought it was genuine, even though it said "Firepower" in fire letters on it, like a 5-year-old had designed it. If you haven't seen it, please don't. I think they're in the Discord, right? Or they're on the Twitter, and it's like, yes, Bergkamp right underneath his name, it said "Firepower," like he's a Street Fighter character. You know, he's just. The fact that it had no club logo or any identifiable feature as to which club it was for. It was that one
black,
did. That
so
one had
presumably...
2 Inter logos on either side. Okay. Yeah. I don't know why. It didn't have a manufacturer logo, of course, but that one did have Inter logos. Yeah. But it was fantastic. And like I said, I appreciate the gift. Very, very kind indeed. And then there was some gifts for the audience, which Mustermann's wearing one of. Yeah, Mustermann actually one of the nicer ones.
It is now a scarf because I'm a fat bastard. But I do like my Neymar scarf. It's very nice. It's not as good as the Endlang shirt, which is probably the highlight.
The trouble is the England shirt is so convincing unless you look in the hologram, which most people probably wouldn't. And I find that really curious. I was like, they've gone to such detail on the rest of the shirt that... Any regular person would have thought that's a genuine shirt. Not many mistakes, like material all right, all like the right grooves and labels and tucks and things like that. I don't know the official terminology. But just in the hologram, Endlang. And if anything, that seems like the hardest bit to mess up, really, doesn't it? Because you've got to really try hard to go like, let's mess up the hologram bit rather than just putting a big dirty stitch somewhere. Like, I mean, part of me did wonder, like, I wonder if they just messed this up officially. I'm going to try and find a load of 2001 England T-shirts and see how many of them have Enlang in the hologram. Because I'd have thought they probably, like fakes back then, most of them, they probably just wouldn't have bothered with the with it.
Yeah, potentially, but yeah. So that was part of the show. Was a few prizes. Now today's episode is kind of going to be off the back of that, to be honest, because I know last week's episode we recorded it prior to the show, but the episode came out after the show, so we're like, oh yeah, it was amazing. So we figured we'd actually have a little bit of time, recap what's happened, not necessarily what went on the show, but more about what the show represents. Now, this has been the third year in a row we've done a live FM show podcast at the Nottingham Comedy Festival. I've worked with them for years, like from when I was doing stand-up. One of my first ever Football Manager Room My Life shows was done in Nottingham. Like the first one was Leicester Comedy Festival, then it was Glasgow, and then it was Nottingham. But I've always worked with the Nottingham Comedy Festival. They're really great people, and the Canal House is such a lovely venue. I really, really like it. And then when we got the chance to do live shows back when I was in FMT, that's where we set it up, and we angled it not just as a podcast live show, but also as an FM meetup. Now, that was what we were keen to try and create, was an FM meetup, and get a mixture of, creators of our level, audience members, fans of Football Manager, just coming, hanging out, listening to a show for an hour. But then the best bit was going downstairs in the bar afterwards and just talking to everyone, mingling, getting to hear everyone's stories, listening to their saves, and then, drinking as much hooch as you could possibly do before the end of the night. That's kind of the way that the vibe was supposed to be made. And let's say this has been this thing that we've done now for 3 years in Nottingham. So off the back of that, so Si, you've been to one, I believe, which was this one. And
No,
Jeff,
I came last year.
Yeah, you came last year. Yeah, so you've been
And I came to the one at the one at
Insomnia.
Yes, so it's the third time. I mean, this is my first time on the stage, but
Yeah. And Jeff, obviously this has been your first time. So, Jeff, I'll come to you first of all then, with it being your first time. What was your sort of like thinking coming into the event? Like, what was your expectations? And then what was your thoughts off the back of it? Like, did it sort of meet expectations? Was there some things that you think we could do better? What could we do to build this a little bit more?
Well, okay, I'll be completely honest. I had no expectations. That's not to say that I thought that I have no bar for you guys. But as in, I didn't really know what I was going to expect, whether it was just going to be like a normal podcast episode or what was going to go on. And so for those that weren't there or haven't been to ones previously, it's not a normal podcast episode. Do go watch it on Patreon. It's much more interactive and a little bit more fun and lighthearted, which is a really, really nice experience. I think it was a really nice way just to kind of warm up the room. I do feel it felt a little bit short. I felt like it could have not necessarily by a major amount, but like just another half an hour or something. You don't want it to go on forever, or you'd want some variety if it was to go on for longer. But yeah, it's really nice. It's this wonderful, relaxed atmosphere. There was a nice mixture of people from the community from an age perspective. So obviously it's quite heavily attended by creators, but we had Zeepover, which was amazing. We had people who I'm going to guess were early 20s and going up into sort of the maybe the early 50s. Which I thought was brilliant. It's lovely that it bridges that gap together. But obviously, as you've mentioned, I think the best part is afterwards. It's the mingling. We're all there with a shared love of Football Manager, aren't we? So any excuse for us to talk about Football Manager endlessly is always going to be welcomed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that hits the nail on the head right there, doesn't it, Si? That it is the age demographic of what we're going for is quite wide. And ultimately, we're here for one shared thing, and that one shared thing is our love of Football Manager.
Yep, that's it. Well, I don't know. There's a lot of talk about other things as well. I mean, a lot of it was football related, but a lot of them then went out and had some drinks and played some pool and had a good time after the show as well. So I think it's nice to meet other people in the community, and some people didn't know anyone and met new people. Some people were, came in a little friendship group of people that they don't get to see that often, but they mostly know online, which was really nice.
Yeah, I think that's a key thing as well, which is something that we tried to. We were very explicit about when we first started. Maybe we didn't do it enough in the lead up to this one. Was to normalise the behaviour of coming on your own, because we do like the idea that these events are a safe space for people, because we know that a lot of these community meetups, they can be quite daunting and quite overwhelming for people. And again, trying to explain to your mates, going, "Oh, I'm off to a Football Manager podcast in Nottingham on a Monday night in November," and some people might go, "Whoa, that's an interesting thing to be doing." But we have found that people have travelled on their own, and then they are welcomed within the people that are there, because we're all there for the same thing, and they get talking and they do leave with friends. I know it sounds really cliche to say, but we are quite proud that is how it works, that it is a case of you can come in on your own. You won't feel uncomfortable, you won't feel left out, you won't feel alienated, and certainly during the show, no one is picked on. And I know, we fall under the comedy banner in a comedy festival, and I guess if you've been to comedy shows before, you might think that the comedians will pick on people and make fun of you. But my way of setting the show up, because I am from a comedy background, is to say we're all here for one thing only. We're not here to make anybody feel uncomfortable. We're here to actually elevate people and make them the star of the show, rather than just than trying to sort of belittle people. So Jeff, I mean, I hope that sort of thing came across, because I mean, you were part of the show at one point, and Olama was part of the show at one point.
Well, I mean, yes, I will point out to the listeners that absolutely nobody sat in the front row, because we were aware it was still a comedy festival. We wanted to avoid that possibility. Subsequently, that meant we were all in the front row. But yeah, no, it was a really welcoming environment. We were put at ease. It was very interactive and involved. The way that it was structured, it's just about Football Manager. It's about the things that we love, about maybe some of the things that we share common ground and frustrations with as well. But it was just a really nice feel-good evening. And I should probably add, I say this as someone who was sober. So that's not the beer of Monday night talking. That's genuinely, it was a really lovely, welcoming environment.
Yeah, that can be a slightly rose-tinted glasses approach as well, isn't it? It was brilliant. Are you sure? I had 19 drinks. It was great. But yeah, no, there is that as well. And again, also, that's the thing that we do try to sort of promote as well, is that going, look, it's not a case of everyone turning up and getting lashed, because we know that some people don't want to do that. Some people might just drive home. We do always say the coffee's really good at the Canal House, and it is. I was on the coffee because I was straight back. I didn't get to stay out this time. I normally stay over, but I had to head straight back, unfortunately, after the show this year. So I stayed till about 10 o'clock, had a couple of coffees, and then drove back home. But what I've noticed, though, is that people do travel for these events. And I know Monday night in Nottingham's not the easiest thing for people to get to. But in the past, we've had... I mean, shout out to the Mad Scientist, by the way, who, friend of the show, he's been on loads. The first time we did this as FMT, he flew over from Denmark for the show. Like, him and his incredible mate turned up, and they spent a week in the UK just travelling around, watching some football. They had a great time. Like, I think he worked out his flights were like 20 quid or something. He could fly from Denmark to London, and then he could like get the mega bus or something from London to Nottingham, or did East Midlands possibly, and someone picked him up. But yeah, I think he got flights for like 20 quid, so he came over. So that's like an incredible effort. You mentioned Zeep, who's like one of our mods and stream. He flew over from Ireland, so that was great. And I know travelling is tricky in the UK. Travelling costs a lot of money in the UK as well, for like train travel. Hotels aren't cheap either, so we get there's an expense attached to it. But I think we find that the people who have been able to make that effort and that sacrifice to get there, they have found that it's worth it when they get there. Because we keep the tickets like super cheap at like a £5. because we know that you've got to spend a lot of money to get there. So that kind of got me thinking off the back of that, going, right, if people are going to travel, and Jeff, you've sort of already touched upon a little bit as well, thinking that the podcast is maybe just a little bit too short for a live show, because we are in 1 hour blocks at comedy festivals, because most comedy shows are an hour. My thought process over this last week has been going, well, what can we do that would be not just a meet-up, but could we take a meet-up one step further? And I put out on Twitter this week, could we potentially consider a Football Manager convention? Si, I'm going to come to you first of all and see if you can talk me down from my crazy ideas that I've started to formulate.
Before you do anything, have you watched either Woodstock 99 or Firefest or Tanacon?
Yeah. And if anything, they've inspired me. I've got...
Oh, right, okay. Everyone turns up, they've
just
got
like
like a little... what's that stuff? Polystyrene container.
Styrofoam or something, yeah.
With a slice of bread and a slice of American cheese on it.
Yeah. I've already got Limp Bizkit on the phone. They're coming. It's going to be great.
Limp Bizkit tearing down the stage.
The plan is to create a lovely environment where we can get some Football Manager fans in a room, a conference centre maybe, for a Saturday, maybe a Saturday and a Sunday. I mean, I'm going big. I'm going big with my ideas. Does it stretch over 2 days? Is there enough content and enough variety for a 2-day thing? Si, try and talk me out of the idea of a Football Manager convention.
Okay, first up, what's the main attraction?
I think the main attraction, and Jeff, I'm going to let you try and tell me otherwise here. I think the main attraction is the community, is trying to organise it as a meetup, okay? Because I don't think... I think we call the community two different things, right? I think as creators, we call the community our community, and the Football Manager create a community. But I think there's the wider community, which I think this podcast doesn't even touch. Like, there's Facebook groups out there that don't know this exists. There's Facebook groups out there that don't know that Lelujo is a thing. Like, they know that Zealand's a thing, but that's about it. Like, so there's 12 million players of this game. We haven't got 12 million subscribers. Like, so there's a big difference. Somewhere we're in a room that can seat 50 in Nottingham. So let's scale it up a little bit. So that's what I think the thing is. I think the thing is to get people together to have a shared experience and make it an event. And I've got some ideas as to things I'd put on. But, Jeff, am I barking up the right tree here?
So, not to discourage, but I'd certainly think that when you talk about that wider community, it's the question is what would they want? So you'd need an attraction, something that brings them beyond just, hey, this is a thing about Football Manager. It's got to be something that really grabs them. Whether that is by having some kind of engagement with SI themselves, whether it's having things there that make people go, this is going to be a unique part of Football Manager's history, and I kind of want to see that. Or Football Manager's future. But yeah, so I think that, yes, the community is a huge part, but there needs to be, like, actual attractions. As much as I'd love to believe that the idea of communities could bring people together.
Okay, so Tony, how about, right, Insomnia has gone, okay? But Insomnia originally, and for a long time, was very much a LAN festival, local area network for those under the age of 20, which means that you're not connected to the wider internet. You're just a little local area network that, I mean, you could be connected to the wider internet, but you're just a little local network where you can play against or with the people within a close proximity to you. So is there a possibility that you could run like a Football Manager season with 32 players on a LAN? I don't know how many it holds. And the thing the thing about having it physical in the room is you've got everyone in the room, and you could be like, hey, like, here's the timer, the day ends, like the game continues at this point here.
Oh, absolutely. So let's start to flesh it out, right? Okay, because at the minute my idea is very much all the way up here, right? and we need to bring it back down. It's very high level at the minute in the fact that it's in the clouds, right? Let's start to Google Maps it and bring it back down to Street View level, okay? So you're right. I think a LAN network is a great. Little LAN party is very much got to be considered. Very old school as well. I'm of a generation when we used to play LAN games when at university because the internet wasn't really a thing back then. So you'd connect the PCs up together. I love the idea of having LAN challenges throughout, or like a draft. You could have like sort of a little area where you just have some drafts going on. People can book some time in, they go and they play, and they do that because it's got to be interactive, right? You've got to like turn up and actually do stuff. That's what people would turn up to play. They want to play Football Manager when they get there. So you'd need a room full of PCs.
Because if you do that, what you can do, like, imagine a LAN game, right? You could, let's say we've got the Premier League. Maybe it's 20. You might need a couple of games actually running, like, simultaneously. But imagine it's 20, and, like, you know, every half hour, the game progresses 1 week, and that would probably get you through it in like, 24 hours or whatever. And people don't sleep at LAN parties.
They bring their own food and their own sleeping bags, don't they?
That's it, yeah. Or maybe every 20 minutes it progresses a week. No, probably half hour, right? So... You the plan is to like do one season, but let's say you're Manchester United manager and you're like, I want this player, and it's a Chelsea player. You can walk across the room and be like, hey, will you sell me this player? How much will you sell him to me for? And you could like have him like you could physically go and I think a little coin in the World Cup jar, even though Aaron's not here. I'm going to mention the World Cup. But one big thing about the World Cup was when someone else around the room was cheering, they weren't even on the same game. They weren't even on a LAN game. But like every time someone cheered, they look around and go, what's happened over there? What's happened over there? What's going on over there? And it would, it would set everyone off.
I was just going to say, the World Cup has shown to us that it's possible to squeeze a season into a day and do that at a competitive level. How competitive you want it to be, that doesn't really actually matter here at all. But in terms of being able to achieve that, it's plausible. Granted, that was organised by FIFA E, who have a reasonable amount of experience in organising these tournaments. So I don't know how much of a challenge that would be. But yeah, being able to have that and create that atmosphere and have those moments between players as well would be pretty cool.
Okay, so let's say that's got to be a lock-in then. That's got to be a lock-in. There's got to be some area where people can play. You could also potentially have one machine set up that's just like a hot potato save. So say you book an hour, so you turn up, and that's constantly running throughout the whole convention. And that is just you turn up, you play for an hour, you then tag out, someone else jumps in, they've got an hour slot booked, they play the game, and you're passing it through. So that's just a nice little thing to have continuous as well. I know they did that historically back in the Football Museum, and I was part of that, and it was like a world record attempt to try and get the longest game of FN running. So that was a good few years ago. So that would be quite fun. You can have that in there. You could potentially. I'm thinking. I mean, do you have some consoles kicking around as well, and try and convince players to play a console, or is that more of a? I mean, again, is that more technology than you need? I know it feels bad probably for the FM console listeners going, what do you mean? Why would you think we don't want that? But, would that be a thing, do you reckon? Or is it more of a get the old school vibe going on?
I would say that it has to be a thing. We know that the player base of FM has exploded over the last 5 years. And a fair chunk of that is going to be console, touch, mobile, and any other versions that I might have forgotten. And if we want a convention that's going to appeal to that broad base, we need to be including and involving them as much as possible. They are, God, this sounds exceptionally corny, but they are the future. Those guys that have come on board, and girls, and any other denomination that have come on board in the last 5 years, will be us in like 2048. So this is where we start. We need to make sure that we're looking at them and setting them on the path to being sad nerds that talk about FM far too much.
Yeah, I think that's the whole thing of a convention, isn't it? It's a showcase event, really. So you do want to be showcasing other aspects and other products that maybe you don't use yourself. So Si, I suppose in that sense, then a console mobile stage or area is kind of a no-brainer.
I've got an idea for you, Tony. Now, this you might have to go off camera and discuss this with the people we know at Sports Interactive. But I know, well, they've been public. They want to test the new game, right? Can you convince them? We won't have this ready in time. But I was gonna, if we did, okay, forget this idea because I've just realised it. The timescales are awful. But if you could convince them, hey, we can have a room full of 100 people who are going to test your new UI. But play the new game before the new game comes out. Maybe like a preview weekend.
Well, I mean, I don't know how long these sorts of events take to plan. I'm guessing about half an hour, really. But we could potentially do it in time for FM26. I know I'm speaking as though this is definitely a locked-in thing. I'm already talking about, all right, we could do it. How's your diary looking in September? So you'd need that. So you'd have the LAN area, you'd have the console and the mobile, you'd have your little hot potato thing going on as well. In terms of other aspects, because I've spoken to a couple of people and they're like, yeah, but what are you going to get from people? Like, why are people going to turn up? So I think you need panels, right? Or you need masterclasses is another thing I'm thinking of, okay? And Mustermann, I'm looking at you, okay? You would be one of my masterclasses, okay? I would put you on a stage for an hour or behind a curtain so you don't have to be on a stage. But I think a Mustermann's Moneyball Masterclass, there's alliteration there as well, right? That would be really, really interesting for you to explain the process that you go through, how you use your skin, how you use, the data that's within the game to play the game you do, because we know it's becoming increasingly popular. And again, it opens up this idea of people who maybe haven't seen your content, but want to play the game in a different way. So that would be a really interesting little talk, I think, as one part of the programming.
Now, I'd certainly be happy to involved. I would have to subtitle it "The Art of Blagging," because
Can it be titled the Masterclass?
The Masterclass.
The Masterclass.
I was surprised you missed it the first time, Tony.
But genuinely, I think that idea of being able to involve the community in ways that you can look at, I think that having a tactics masterclass, if the mad scientist is willing to fly over for a podcast, he's definitely going to be willing to come over for a convention. I'm looking at you right now, having that insight into the database side of things and all those areas that maybe a lot of the player base don't know about. Because let's face it, so from a mod perspective, like skins are probably the thing that are most common mods that are out there, and there have been this year about 2 million downloads. If we say that people download multiple skins and only use one, you're probably looking at less than 10% of the player base use mods. So being able to introduce people to new aspects of the game would be phenomenal. And you've got some great minds out there, like obviously RDF for Tactics. I think that panels like that and masterclasses would be brilliant. I think panels with people just generally in the game of football, whether that's they've got some relation to FM, like the gentleman I think who worked at maybe Barnet. I should have researched this before coming on here. There's a gentleman
Bromley.
who... No, so there's the Bromley... There was the guy who got the job from the Bromley competition, but there's another guy that was in the news a couple of months ago. I can't remember where, or his name. I feel bad. But, yeah, or just general people from football. Like, no disrespect to Sam Allardyce, I'm pretty certain that when he was at the FIFA World Cup, he knew nothing of Football Manager. And was there just for the fun of it. But being able to hear his insights into the game is fascinating. That's worth going for.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think we need to start angling those discussion points, and the masterclasses I think are a great one to do. I think getting SI involved before we go into the wider world of football and getting people involved as well. I think getting someone from a few little slots of SI people in there would be great. Like SI staff who can sort of explain things like the new match engine, because of course it will be a newer part of what they can do with Unity, explaining to the community exactly what Unity can give us in the future. Looking at that and saying, right, okay, this is how we plan to use it going forward. This is how we present women's football. Here's our women's football division, and bring some female creators in as well, and have a women's football panel, and say this is the work we've put in, and it would sort of work. I think it would sort of help maybe smooth over a few cracks with some of the wider community and with Sports Interactive, given the issues with FM25. It might curry them a little bit more favour with a few people.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, the mob,
or it could be the opposite. It could be the opposite.
The big mob of people show up and throw rotten tomatoes at everyone. So, but I think you're right. Like, I think it could be that kind of event. The thing I notice is the minute you talk to someone face to face, like, people can be very abrasive online. The minute you talk to someone face to face, often people change very quickly, and they're like, "Oh, we were miscommunicating for years and years and years, and actually this guy's all right or whatever." A lot of misunderstandings can be solved just by talking to the person, really.
And I think there's a certain person goes to a Football Manager convention for a weekend as well, so I think that sort of automatically changes a personality trait. You could maybe have part of an idea that's just popped in my head there. You could maybe have some of the research staff or the scouts sort of coming in and saying, look, this is how we scout players in real world. This is how we then put them into the database in Football Manager, because I think that would be really interesting to see that move from real football to attributes.
I've got an idea, Tony. What about if it's that, right? But there's like a mini pitch, and you've got a minute to show off your skills. Like, you can run up and down, you can juggle the ball or whatever, and the scout will give you a rating. They'll be like, "Hey, you got a 3 out of 10 on your pace, but you got good technique, good finishing."
When I was at school, I played with players who've gone on to be in editions of Football Manager, Championship Manager. They were miles better than I could ever wish to be. And yet, when they reached at a professional level, they'd have like an 8 in passing. By extension, my rating, therefore, is like a -6. And so I'd be worried about having scouts there turning around and saying, "Yeah, so, you're shit."
That is fair, actually. No one's going to come out of this well, are there? Let's be honest. There's not going to be like, "Oh, actually, we've got a wonder kid sat here. Like, he's incredible for everything." I always remember there's a great, and again, this is one of my sort of pleasures. As you might know, I'm a big CrossFit fan, and there's a beautiful line in one of the CrossFit Games documentaries that says, "You don't know how much you've got you don't know how good you've got to be to suck at the CrossFit Games," and that is pretty much is football. As you say, Jeff, you got these guys that are brilliant at football at school, but are actually quite crap when you think about the level that you actually need to be an elite level player. So maybe we don't do that then. Maybe we take that idea off side. So we'll get that one out of there. But one thing I think we could do though is, how cool would it be to have a meet and greet or an interview with some Football Manager legends? Like, I'm just going to put it out there. I reckon we could get Cherno Samba.
Yeah. Do you think who? Let's say.
Are you about to say who would want to meet Cherno Samba? Are you about to say that?
No, I was about to say, if you've got your hit list, 5. And probably you can watch the Tony did a stand-up once. Did anyone know that? Yeah, if you could watch Tony's show, I'm sure they're all featured.
How
in
belittling that was!
I mean, I was
Tony did a stand-up once.
It's to sound belittling. But it was more a case of, I'm sure it's like Aaron in the World Cup, isn't it? It'll be like
15
that's what Aaron
years
in the World
worth
Cup
of
will be.
comedy just distilled into Tony to stand up once.
I think. Do you know what? My opinion on that is because you need to do a new one, Tony. That's why.
Well, maybe I'll do it at the convention. Maybe that could be one of the things
that's
I can be.
Because
I can go
when did you do the stand-up?
12 years ago now.
Yeah.
So it's due a reboot.
It's due
and
a new one.
It needs
So-
an ending. It needs an ending to the show. So maybe the ending of the show is, and we did a convention.
Football Manager conventions ruined my life. So who would be your 5 hit list? So Cherno Samba's on there.
Adu.
I'm like throwing darts. I don't know. I don't want to throw darts at him.
Freddie Adu's got to be on there.
Freddie Adu. Okay. Mm-hmm. Who else is on there? It could be a good player. It doesn't have to be a player who didn't make it.
Mark Kerr.
Okay,
I'm going
Mark
for
Kerr.
old ones. Taribo West.
Taribo West, yes, of course.
Oscar Cardozo.
Oscar Cardozo.
Or
okay,
Pablo
okay.
Aimar, maybe.
No, you've got that's 6.
I know, I can't just do Kim Kallstrom. I'm having Jeff's as well.
We've got a budget, Tony. We've got to budget it.
Oh, in that case, a budget.
I'm assuming you got to pay for flights and hotels and appearance fees for all of these. What do you reckon
That's
the
what
appearance fee for Taribo West is?
I don't think it's going to be that much.
Bucket of KFC?
I don't know. What do you reckon, Jeff? Who do you reckon we could get?
So firstly, you can take 3 of mine anyway, because I've only got 2. But it is completely and utterly dependent on you guys finding them. And that's Toe Madeira and Alexandros Alexandropoulos, who I believe both were fake players that were amazing.
We can get
In terms of like...
That's easier. You could just dress anyone up and say this is who they are.
Well, actually, no. Tomadera was a real person, wasn't he? He was a scout. Is that right? And he put himself in the game, so we could find Tomadera. Imagine that if we found Tomadera, brought him out, and some people would boo, but some people would cheer.
Oh, we'd all cheer.
Maybe. I mean,
he's a legend.
Does he have to look like a regen? Do we have to give him like?
But I think we should make him
Look like a regen, a new gen.
give him a mohawk for no reason, even though he's 60.
This is in the conditions of your appearance. You have to have a mohawk and massive eyebrows.
Yeah. Okay. So potentially a meet and greet then. Potentially some sort of FM legend. I think that would sell it. That would sell it. If you said, right, I'm going off to a Football Manager convention, and people go, what do you mean Football Manager convention? Go, Cherno Samba's there, or Taribo West is there. I think you've got people starting to think this is a possible thing now, right? So again, we're trying to sell the idea of people getting here. Maybe we can rope Miles in. Miles might want to come and do a little chat for a bit.
I don't think Miles wants to meet people.
Look,
People are not nice to Miles. I don't know.
Look, a lot of these ideas will be put in the incinerator, right? But we've got to get the ideas out, right? You've got to chuck some shit against the wall and see what sticks, right?
As someone who's met Miles, I will say he's a very nice man. So
He's lovely.
He
He's
is.
lovely. But yeah, he might not want to do this. So maybe we stick with Cherno Samba then. A question I've got, and I'm on the fence about this one, right? See if either of you can sway me on this. Because when I asked about it over the weekend to my community, my streaming community, and Twitter and Discords and stuff, the opinion was split on whether it needed to have a live tournament, like a PvP tournament,
like a showdown.
Yeah, like a showdown. And opinion was split on whether it needed it or whether it could do without it.
What if how about you have a showdown, but you enlist a load of D tiers, Z tier celebrities and pair them up with streamers?
Oh no, I don't like adding celebrities into anything. I always associate. You know when they do like celebrity versions of TV shows, right?
Oh, they're always the worst.
I always think they're like the S version of the iPhone. Like, just wait for the next series. Like, it's clearly not ready. Just don't bother.
Like, they stayed in the Big Brother house for 3 days. How incredibly tolling on them.
Yeah.
I'm sure the
Why not
psychology
mix?
is all there, and they're not in it for the fame.
Why not mix the previous idea? Cherno Samba paired up with a streamer.
Now we're talking. Now we're talking. I mean, it gets a lot more expensive, but now we're talking.
I mean, I don't think that the convention would need to have, say, a whole tournament. But if you have some kind of tournament that is running in the lead up, you could have one of the events being the broadcast of the final. So you could have kind of like a halfway between. You have this big event that it builds towards without having to work out the logistics of, yeah.
But I guess the question then, Si, would be, when would it go on? Would it close the Saturday night or would it close the Sunday night? Because I mean, you need these are your two big filler moments, isn't it? In a convention, what's your big ticket item? And is it a live tournament? Is it a final of something, or is it Cherno Samba?
I think Saturday night you gotta have like a panel or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it'd probably be a 2-day thing, isn't it? You have your final on the Sunday. You have something on the Saturday night, and then you have a final on the Sunday. I think if you don't close on the everyone will like disappear off down the pub or whatever. So that's when you got to have the final that will close it out on the Sunday. You know, just a few hours before the convention closes. Gives everyone a bit of time afterwards to, because I've been to events where like the final thing is like the last thing at the convention. You're like, oh, this is super annoying because
and everyone's tidying up around you and like right,
that's
out you go.
it.
Yeah.
Like,
So,
well, also if you've got like, I'm sort of thinking when I go to the board game convention every year, and like sometimes we book events that are last thing on the Sunday. But the last thing on the Sunday is when because the venue's like kicking everyone out. And you're like, well, I gotta go get my coat, or they're doing like a last second sale of the thing because I want to go check what they got for the last second. So like if there's an event at the same time, you can't do any of that, and it makes it like cut short your final day.
See, sale, that's another thing that I'm thinking, Mustermann. We need vendors in here. We need to start getting shirt suppliers, you know, because we know our friends at Surprise Shirts and our friends at the non-league football shirt shop, they do FM boxes. So get them involved to start selling some merch to tie in with the game. We know Full-Time Prints, friends of ours, get them involved and get the football game company. We could use the football game company and have that as a as ours as well. See, maybe even do a quiz night, Si, on the Saturday night.
A quiz night would be good. Yeah. I'm actually it's just given me a thought. Board game tables. There are Football Manager board games, and they are all pretty good. Some of them are more football tactics. Some of them are more like management. Like some tables out with some of the board games, and like there's a mixture of them. There's a new like Super Club. I know Tom FM has done Super Club.
Yeah.
I've got Super Club as well, but there's a couple other ones as well. They're all very cool, and you could probably tie in. You know, they could even run their tournaments at the venue, which would be kind of cool, like a little crossover community.
About our football shirt friends, the retro football shirts could be in there as well. Have some football shirt stalls, maybe sticker collectors, possibly. Mustermann, would you be interested in turning up and seeing some dudes or dudettes selling football stickers and Corinthian figures and all that sort of things?
Yes and no, because I like my bank account. So, in some respects, selfishly, I should probably discourage. But no, yeah, I think that there's so many. You mentioned also like board game tournaments. Do we get the Subbuteo community coming down? We can have Subbuteo tournaments. That's a proper throwback.
I mean, now this isn't a Football Manager convention is the only problem, but it could be a football gaming convention. I mean, then you got to get the FIFA people in. But do you get the FIFA people in? You know, it's like okay, you get the Pro Evo people in. You get the top 11
referee simulator people in.
Yeah, the top 11 players in. You know, get a nice little mixture.
Okay. I'm starting to think this isn't actually as daft an idea as I originally thought now. So I'm starting to think that we've got some bits and bobs here that could happen. Panels, of course, as well. We've mentioned panels. It would be foolish to not consider a panel of creators and get some conversation going on from there. Get the big creators involved if we can do, of course. Reach out to them and say, look, you know, come and talk about the game and that, because I suppose it's all about exposure, isn't it, to get people through the door. So that would be quite an interesting discussion point as well.
Definitely. Yeah, I think you got to get, if you have a couple of panels, maybe a creator one, maybe like a, maybe you chat with some people who work in the game, some people who work on the game, like as in the real game, football, and some people who work on the game, as in Football Manager. A little mixture of things, some fun panels. Maybe a couple of you said the quiz or a game show or two. I mean, anyone who didn't turn up to the live show, you can watch it on Patreon. Use a free trial. We get a free trial for the Patreon. The FM, patreon.com/the FM Pod Show.
No, do it again.
Damn it. The FM Show Pod. The FM Show Pod. I was like, do you know what? When I said that, I was like, this doesn't sound right. / the FM Show Pod. The FM Pod Show. The FM Show Pod. So if you go that, this week, I mean, what we did was Dragon's Den. Like, we could do...
But for legal reasons, not Dragon's Den.
/ X Factor / Shark Tank / what's the cryptocurrency one? Killer Whales, which is atrocious if you've ever seen it. It doesn't even make sense. I mean, I tell you what, the cryptocurrency one makes less sense than R1 on Monday. R1 on Monday, we actually gave away more on R1 on Monday than they get on the cryptocurrency one, which is on Amazon. I recommend a watch on how awful and confusing it is if anyone hasn't seen Killer Whales. So but we could do. Well, you said maybe we don't do blind date, but we could do a few different variations on a fit like quiz shows or
the regeneration game.
The generation game.
Regeneration game. So you get your new generation game. Yeah.
Right. Just for clarity, I would like to make sure that Jim Davison's not involved.
Oh no, he's not involved at all. Not involved at all. Right.
Perfect. Then I mean, let us know in the comments. Is there a game show that you think would transfer well to a Football Manager / football tournament? I want people's creative ideas, their creative juices flowing, and let me know let us know. Is there a game you can consider? I mean, we've obviously played the football game before. That's always obviously always a good one. But I think there are definitely like some game shows that would translate pretty well.
I should say as well, during all of this, it goes without saying that there's a live podcast as well, right? Like we've definitely got a slot in this convention, surely.
Yeah. Well,
I
think
unfair to book the whole thing and then go, I didn't bother putting us in. I can't believe I never bothered.
The FM show presents.
Yeah, but not just the FM show. Like open it up so like FM show, FMT, 5-star, get them all on or various parts of the day, so that everyone gets the exposure, because I think that would be quite nice. It'd be nice to have a section for the bloggers as well, to be honest, because I think the bloggers often get...
Like a writing corner.
Yeah, like a little writing
That's
room.
A pen and paper, go over there.
Just a small, dark corner where they can sit and go, you wouldn't understand unless you can read big words. Like, but you know what? But have those things like the cafe quarterly, latte quarterly, that Grasshopper does. Get that in there. That's a great piece of work. So again, advertise that. As you say, the modding community have like some space for the modding community working on skins. You've got your database community. You've got kit designers, and people who can do graphics, and someone can try and explain to me at some point during the convention that there is actually a reason to have new gen faces in the game. All those things that could be part of it. And I think there needs to be enough variety for everybody for it to be a thing. But I do believe that there is enough stuff that you could program at least one day, probably 2 days.
Could I throw a spanner in the works? Does it need to be in the UK?
Ooh, where are you fancying?
I have no ideas beyond that thought, but I mean, ultimately, we have a global community, and there are probably more people in the whole body of Europe than there are in the UK that play the game, and Europe is one big landmass, and we're not. So it might be that you can actually get more people involved if it's in, say, a Germany or a France or somewhere that can be more central. I mean, an excuse to go to Italy. Italy's quite nice all year round.
Let's book out the San Siro.
That's true, actually. Yeah, that's not a bad shout. The Switzerland, the FIFA Museum in Switzerland, in Zurich.
Possibly, yeah.
That's possible.
I mean, if we
before.
want to run it on the, if we want someone to pay us to run it, we could go Saudi Arabia.
Nope. Nope, that's not
Tony,
happening.
you can't rule out the sponsors. They could sponsor us.
No. Look, I want the convention, but I want it at 50% capacity because I refuse to sell out. Someone else can make a convention that has this sports washing backed ways of doing things, and they'll make an absolute fortune out of it. That's fine. I want to have my own little nice festival over here, nice community convention. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I love how Sai's like going, I can't believe he's not taking the money. I can't believe it.
I know.
I thought this whole aversion to sports washing was a front, but no, he seems quite set in his ways. Mustermann, help me out here.
If Saudi Arabia offer us 500k to run it in Saudi Arabia,
More, because I know they've got more. I want 18 million.
18 million. I mean, that would actually pay. If that happened, that would actually make it like, okay, shit, we could actually get some we could actually get in some guests, and we can actually, well, not to say we won't have guests, but it would make actually. How much could you get Taribo West for? How much could you?
You'd still get him for the 45 quid it would cost you to get him normally.
I mean, he's probably still kicking it. He's probably kicking it in the Saudi Arabian league at the minute. So, yeah, I think. Does he? I assume he's well retired by now.
Oh yeah. I think he's a pastor now. Actually,
is he?
Last bit of research done on Taribo West. Yeah, he's a pastor. Yeah.
Okay.
But you make a good point though, Mustermann, about making it international. Because my thoughts were we'd end up having to do it in London or Liverpool or something. And obviously when you ask these things on Twitter, like, where would you like it to be? And people are like, oh, can we have it in like Northwich? And you're like, no, you can't. You can't have it next to your house because it hasn't got an international airport. And people can't get to it.
I live near Luton. We can have it. We can have it in my back garden. Perfect. I don't actually have a garden.
Right. Oh, you just talked yourself out of a festival there, haven't you? Right. So the convention's going to be in Luton, Si. We'll make a note of this now. So what are we thinking? When should we hold it? Because before FM26 is a thing, we could potentially. There's enough time to. I don't know how long these things take to plan, but we could tie it in with a launch game.
Yeah, I think it would take us a year to plan it. So that's it. This time next year, we'll be in Luton.
Be in Luton, okay. And if there's anyone who listens to this podcast is a project manager who's good at booking conventions, maybe give us an email and tell us just how far wide of the mark we are at this point with this idea.
My guess is pretty far, but there are the foundations of something.
Oh yeah. I'm not expecting these people to get in touch and go, Tony, you were spot on with this, by the way. Because if I am, then conventions must be an absolute doddle to book.
Yeah. Let's not be organising tents for accommodation on deserted islands for anyone. I think that's out the picture.
It's a bit unfair to refer to Luton as a deserted island, but
You say that Fire Festival was a disaster, but I think it made the organisers quite a bit of money. Well, until they got sued.
No,
so, as long as you do a runner,
they went to jail.
We also get a Netflix series out of it. So if anything, this is great exposure. And what's on Netflix? Football Manager Mobile.
That's true, yeah. Is this like the Vince McMahon documentary and them signing WWE to it? Is that like their equivalent?
Potentially, but again with a lot less litigious outcome on it. So I mean, I'm just spitballing ideas. All I'm saying, I don't think it's the worst idea I've had, and I've had many bad ideas, but I don't think this is the worst one. And I think that this is definitely something that should be considered.
What is now I'm curious, what is the worst one?
Oh, it's There's many bad ideas I've had. I'll tell you one that I know for definite. Myself and Mrs. J got approached when we were planning our wedding. We got approached by the BBC to go on Don't Tell the Bride, and I considered it.
Do you know what? They only want you to do mad stuff on that program. Like,
really? God, I wonder why they asked me.
Yeah, but what I mean is the producers will push you to do something like almost threateningly so, and like it actually puts you in a really awkward position. So it'd be like, no, you need to do this. We're not going to do that. You're not going to have the regular venue. You're going to have the crashed helicopter in a field venue.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why Mrs. J said no, because I would have been fine with those conversations.
I mean, there's some of those venues that they pick. Like, this is the thing. We've got to pick a good venue, right? Like, sometimes on Don't Tell the Bride, and it's like, I've seen them, they're like, yeah, he's like, I've got this dilapidated warehouse, super cheap for the weekend. And I was like, yes, because there's a sheep shitting in the corner, and, like, there's a leak over there, there's electrical wires over there. And he's like, yeah, we could just hide that behind a palm tree. And they get, like, an IKEA palm tree that's only 3 foot tall, and the electrical wires are just above it or whatever. And it's like, actually, I did see one where it was like that, and then it got to like almost the wedding day, and they were like, "Yeah, health and safety said we can't have the wedding here. We've got to go some. We've got to now find a different dilapidated warehouse." And they wanted to cover it all in sand, so it was beach theme, but they got a load of like building sand, so everyone got a rash. And it's like, so I just want to put these like things. You know, if you think, like Tony, you might think, I want like let's get loads of sand for the floor. There's computers in the room. Let's not do that.
Okay, just to confirm before Mustermann comes in on this one, I didn't think about bringing sand. Okay, just put it out there, just in case anyone's thinking Tony probably does think sand. No, I didn't think sand at all. Right, I didn't think we were going to have a Hawaiian-themed Football Manager convention. Right? So,
no, you don't lie. I know what you were thinking. You're going to have a panel show with Omega Luke and Tom FM called Going on Holiday, and it was going to have sand on the stage.
Just flicking through magazines, going, "What do you do when you click holiday?" Sorry,
we've got two opportunities here. Like, beach soccer is a thing, right? So why not we have Eric Cantona's beach soccer at 5 versus Ronaldinho's beach? They should be cheap and easy to book. But you mentioned a dilapidated warehouse, and that's what I want to zero in on, because there is one iconic dilapidated warehouse that hosts conventions in the UK that needs to be considered, and that is wherever the hell the Willy Wonka experience was hosted.
Oh,
the one in Glasgow. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Damn right.
Yeah, we could do that. Because I was trying to work it out, and where could we do it? Because lots of people said, "Oh, do it in football clubs or do it at Wimbledon," and I was like, "No, you don't want to do it at football club because." You know, football fans is the reason why, because they're like, "Oh, I'm not going there because it's like the team that I don't like." So let's not do that. And also
book out the suites at the club.
Yeah, but they're all franchised out though. They're owned by the brewery rather than the actual club, so the club don't get the money. And then even then, when you do the whole like, "Oh yeah, we can go and watch a match," well, it sort of takes away the whole thing of a convention, I suppose. Really, that's just hanging out at a football match. And I think. Also, as well, it's kind of what Callum does, what Callum does with his annual visit to Slough. So again, I don't want to consider doing something that's essentially the same thing, really. So that's a great thing. He goes and gets people to go and watch Slough pre-season.
I mean, someone has to, don't they? Like,
oh yeah, exactly.
The Slough tourism boards there. Why Callum's the front picture on the Slough.
100%.
I feel like I'm slandering Callum now. I'm sorry. I've already slandered Luke and Tom.
I think he's the shirt sponsor for next year. But yeah, I think you're right. I think venue wise is a thing. Like, is it going to be conference suite? Is it going to be abandoned aircraft hangar? Or is it just going to be 2 pubs? Like, because again, like how many people how many people would you expect to this sort of thing?
I don't know.
I mean that place that we went to, the retro football fair, though, that was pretty cool. So,
yeah, there was a few. The one in Sheffield as well was like kind of nice, kind of a good sized venue. I don't know. The one in London was definitely bigger. It was like a small box parky type thing.
Yeah, it was cool, wasn't it?
It had like a big, but it had a big screen and stage at the back, which would have been like kind of useful. That was in London. It was kind of wasn't too bad to get to. I don't think, if I remember correct.
No, Mustermann. We don't need the NEC, do we?
I think
I wouldn't mind the
think you do.
NEC without doxing myself. It's about 5 minutes down the road, so I'll take it.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, Si says yes. Sorry, Mustermann. Yeah. Si
I mean,
jumps
from a
to it as well.
sensible, the NEC might be a bit grand, but Birmingham is surely the best, like, actual choice of location. International airport, middle of the country. Like, yeah, the NEC is probably not there, but there are plenty of. Actually, I mean, how many does the NEC hold? Because we've got a potential audience of 12 million, right?
They got loads of halls. They got 30 halls or something, and most even the Eurogamer only takes 3 halls or 2 halls when they used to do it, and there's way more halls than that. So
with 12 million all turning up, every single Football Manager player will turn up. We're actually going to need like 10 NECs.
Okay, yeah. So we book that out for like 2 weeks or something and just do it that way.
Yeah. On your credit card.
Okay. I'll get a credit card. I'll do that. Can we do it with Klarna, do you reckon? It'll be fine, won't it? Just the Football Manager reference, spread payments, and it'll do on the never, and no one ever needs to know about it, and it'll all be fine. And then we can walk away, and then the NEC's bankrupt, and we go, it's not our problem, we left. We could maybe try it that way. So yeah, okay, there we go. That's something to consider then. I think this still needs further consideration because strangely it's not fully formed yet. But do let us know in the comments if you think this is a ridiculous idea, if you think this is an idea that has legs. If you know what, even let us know what you'd want to see. If such a thing existed, if a convention existed, what would you cosplay? You could come as the Dormark manager man from Championship Manager.
I am not dressing up as Jono Samba.
Could you get Kasabian to play the theme tune?
He's already there. We could have a who's who. Which one? Corporate has sent these 2 pictures.
Oh, what? Never mind the Buzzcocks lineup.
The identity parade. Yeah.
sheet.
Get a whole bunch of former Football Manager wonder kids. One stood there, and then the rest is just 4 random people.
Or like the Would I Lie to You one. The Would I Lie to You. This is Cherno Samba. He was my wonder kid in FM22.
You know what? That would be cool, though, if you had 4 people stood next to Alexander Farnerud and you weren't entirely sure which one was which. I think I might make this happen, to be honest. So let us know in the comments below that what have we missed from this, okay, apart from common sense. But what have we missed? What things would you want to see if such a convention was to take place? And would you come? Let us know. Si, there's other places they can let us know things, isn't there? They can follow us on social media, for example.
Yes. Patreon.com/the FM Show Pod. If you want to come check out the Patreon, come check out the live show, go use a free trial. If you follow it, then it might email you and say have a longer free trial, just to throwing that out there. I don't know how often Patreon does that. That's on them, not us. You can email us at thefmshowpod@gmail.com. You can come find us on Twitter at the FM Show Pod. We're on TikTok, we're on YouTube, which where a lot of you are probably already watching us, but if you're listening to us, you can find us on YouTube. If you want to see the visual version, you want to come see Tony's wonderful shirt. Well, he's now it's the listeners, Tony, they can't see you doing that. That was a cue for the listening people who are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or SoundCloud.
The Sports Podcast Network, which was what
Sports
we're part of.
Podcast Network, yes. Yes, and Mustermann, where can people follow you? Let's hand it over.
Right. So you can mainly find me on YouTube at youtube.com/MustermannFM. Or on Twitch, which I've started recently at twitch.tv/MustermannFM. Or on Twitter at x.com/MustermannFM. Like, I have a TikTok and an Instagram, I don't use them. So I won't. Don't follow me there. It's pointless.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And you know what? We will say the Mustermann FM is definitely worth a follow. He makes great content, so go and check him out and support him. He's a friend of the show, which of course he'll be back again and will be part of the FM convention when it gets booked. So thank you very much for listening, everyone, and watching. Hope you've all enjoyed it. As I said, do leave some comments below. Let us know what you think. And we're going to lock the cameras off now, and we're going to go and do some Patreon. So if you thought what we've just done there was loose, let's see what we come up with while we try and do some Patreon content as well. So take care of yourselves, everyone. Stay safe, and we will see you all next week on another episode of the FM show. All the best, everyone. Take care. Bye now.